In this lesson, we will take an introductory look at ratios. To begin, a ratio is the comparison of two or more quantities. For example, we might say that at a certain school, the ratio of boys to girls is 2 to 5. Here, we are comparing the ratio of both boys to the number of girls. Now, it's important to know that the 2 to 5 ratio here does not imply that there are exactly 2 boys and exactly 5 girls at the school. Ratio tells us nothing about actual quantities, they only tells us about proportions. So here, the 2 to 5 ratio means at the school there are 2 boys for every 5 girls. Also know that the order of number is very important. For example, if we were to say that the ratio of boys to girls is 5 to 2, then that would mean that there are 5 boys for every 2 girls. Now, there are 3 different types of notation we can use to express ratios. We can express the ratio as 2 to 5, or we can express it using a colon to separate the terms, or we can express the ratio as a fraction. Now, in general, if we are given information that can be recorded in the form for every something, there is something else. We are typically dealing with the ratio quotient. So, be sure to keep this in mind. Now, most ratio quotients fall in two categories: equivalent ratio quotients and portioning quotients. Let's look at equivalent ratio quotients first. Now, to begin, we should recognize that the ratio 1 to 2 is equivalent to the ratio 3 to 6. For example, saying that there is 1 girl for every 2 boys at a school is the same as saying that there are 3 girls for every 6 boys at the school. Both ratios express the same proportion. So, we say that 1 to 2 and 3 to 6 are equivalent ratios. Now, we can create equivalent ratios by multiplying or dividing both terms by the same value. So, for example, if we take the ratio 2 to 7 and multiply both forms by 2, we get the equivalent ratio 4 to 14. Similarly, if we take the ratio 2 to 4 and multiply both terms by 5, we get the equivalent ratio 15 to 20. Now, a common quotient type related to equivalent ratios is one we are told that two ratios are equal and we need to solve for some unknown value. To solve this type of quotients, we first rewrite the equivalent ratio using fraction notation and then we apply the following rule. So, when we apply this rule and we cross multiply, we get the following equation. And when we simplify the right hand side, we get x equals 18. So, ratio 1 to 2 is equal to the ratio 9 to 18. Alright, let's tackle a word question involving equivalent ratios. Here, we are told that at a certain zoo, the ratio of the number of reptiles to the number of birds is 7 to 2. There are 28 birds and we must find the number of reptiles. Now this question happened to feature the word ratio. So we know it's ratio quotient. However, we also know it's a ratio quotient because we can rephrase the information to read. For every 7 reptiles, there are 2 birds. Now, the question tells us the ratio of a number of reptiles to number of birds is 7 to 2. So, we can write this as the number of reptiles to the number of birds is equal to 7 to 2. The question also tells us that there are 28 birds, so we can replace the number of birds here with 28. Now, we don't know the number of reptiles. In fact, the question asks us to find this number. So, let's R represent the number of reptiles at the zoo. And then replace the number of reptiles in the ratio with R. Now, this ratio we are told is equal to 7 to 2. We now have an equation we can solve for R. To solve this equation, we can apply the following rule and cross multiply and simplify the right hand side and then divide both sides by 2 to get R equals 98. This means there are 98 reptiles at the zoo. Now, the other question type involving ratio requires us to portion quantities into certain ratios. For example, in this question, Jules has a total number of 15 cookies and he plans to distribute them to Kendra and Patty in a 2-to-1 ratio. In other words, for every 2 cookies, the Kendra receives and Patty receives 1 cookie. Our goal here is to calculate how many cookies each person receives. To do this, we first add the term in the ratio. So for this question, we add 2 and 1 to get 3. This tells us for every 3 cookies, Kendra receives 2 cookies and Patty receives 1 cookie. Now, here comes the most important part. If we had 3 bags of cookies with equal amount of cookie in each bag, then we would achieve the 2-to-1 ratio by giving Kendra 2 bags and giving Patty 1 bag. So, given this, let's divide all 15 cookies into 3 bags. This means we will put 5 cookies in each bag. Now that we have 3 bags of cookies, we can divide the bag into 2-to-1 ratio. This means Kendra gets 2 bags and Patty gets 1 bag. When we do this, we see that Kendra gets 10 cookies and Patty gets 5 cookies. Also notice that the ratio of 10 to 5 is equal to the target ratio of 2 to 1. Alright, let's summarize. In this lesson, we learned that if a question can be written in the format for every x there are y, then it is a ratio question. We learned how to solve equivalent ratios questions and we learned how to solve portioning questions.